Welcome to the 4 Pillars of Men's Health, a podcast of resources for restoring vigor and vitality, bringing you top influencers in the men's health arena, case studies of men who have succeeded and how they did it, and cutting-edge teaching on men's health issues from America's leading men's health guru, Dave Skattum. Get ready to take steps towards good health. Here's your host, Dave Skattum.
Hey, welcome to the 4 Pillars of Men's Health. I am so glad that you joined us today. I have a really exciting interview set up for you guys today. And it's my belief that each one of us as guys have this incredibly unique journey we all take towards good health. And that's why I'm so inspired to do this series of podcasts, just interviewing guys that I've known and met that have taken a journey and made some good decisions and found some level of good health. And I'm especially excited today because I get to talk to a guy that is off in the future. He's from Australia, and I just ran into him because he has a passion for men's health as well. And Stuart, it's Stuart Baptist, and I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining us today on this podcast, Stuart.
Thank you. No, glad to be here.
All right. Hey, so Stuart, a little bit about Stuart. Stuart is a physiotherapist in Australia. America, we call him a physical therapist. And he has this great practice. And we'll be talking about that and really focusing on some specific things about men's health, and looking forward to hearing about that. He's also the father of 4 kids, 3 boys and 1 girl. Yeah. And he has you can't see this, but he has a picture of him right behind him. It looks like a really great family. And Stuart, I'm so glad that we're going to be talking today about men's health and your perspective on things. And I always like to start these interviews off with just kind of this question of like, what is on Stuart Baptist's front burner right now? What is getting you out of bed in the morning these days?
Well, the first thing that gets me out of bed is pain at the moment because I'm just recovering from ankle surgery. So if I can get a couple of hours sleep, that's good. And then so that's kind of taking up my life at the moment. And so, but the good thing is I'm getting a lift into work with my wife, so I'm getting a little bit of quality time in the morning. So that's nice. So I don't have to catch the bus.
All right. Yeah. So man, that pain can really have an impact on your life. So I
it
feel
does, but
for
it's
you
temporary. It's temporary. So it's going to get better.
Yep.
It's going to get past it, and then I'll get back into training, and then we'll get on from there. So it's all going to be good. It's all going to be good.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, so I'm so curious about your perspective on this because first of all, you're on the other side of the earth from me, and you have such a unique life experience of your own. And I'm kind of like this, like an amateur historian. When I think of men's health, my mind kind of goes back to the Greek and Roman era when I imagine these great artists chiseling out on these Greek pillars this ideal kind of a sculpture of what they thought an ideal man would look like. And I'm just curious if you could put an ideal man up on one of those pillars and say, you know what, this guy right here is the picture of health. What do you think describe that guy? What would make that person healthy? And just what's in your mind on that?
It's a really interesting question because, like, the first thing that you've said is if you could look at a sculpture from the outside, what would be your definition of health? And I think that's actually the wrong way to probably look at the entire picture, because I think that health is not just about what we see on the outside. It's not just about, what we look like. In fact, a majority of the healthiest men that I see, you wouldn't call them Adonises. You wouldn't call them, this picture of perfection in man's health, but yet they live in what I would consider a balanced life. And that means that both their mind and their body are in sync with each other. And I think that would be my definition of an ideally healthy man, is not just what they look like and not what their body's functioning like, but that they're at ease with where they are with their bodies, and I think that their mind and their body would be connected.
Yeah. So so that is so interesting. I described this culture, or I mean this sculpture, and then you took it in a different direction. You said it's not necessarily what you see on the outside, it's the balance, and then you went into mind and body in sync. So dig a little deeper on that. What exactly does that look like to you? And like if you're thinking of a guy that is healthy that way and their mind and body is in sync, how's he operating? What's happening there?
Well, I think, the guys that I deal with predominantly in my practice are guys that are suffering either with prostate cancer, so they've got either incontinence or erectile dysfunction, or they're in chronic pelvic pain, so they're dealing with penile, anal, testicular pain, stuff that just they don't ever want to talk about, they don't want to acknowledge. Yeah. And the thing is that, what I try and encourage these guys to realize is that where they are right now is not where they're going to be forever. Okay. And that in fact, we all go through tough points in our life. And I think that the ideal man is able to step away from the troubles in the moment and actually start to plan for the future by looking at what they do in that moment in time. And I think that that's what we try. That's what I try and do as a clinician, is to say, look, don't get wound up in the things that you can't change, but look at the things that you can and work hard towards changing those.
Yeah. Wow. I'm writing this stuff down. That's really good. That's such a great perspective, because we can like get bogged down in the moment of like you're dealing with this pain. We can get bogged down in that whole thing of like, man, this is so, it just overwhelms us. And if we can just switch a little bit there and think about, what is there that I can do in this moment, and think about future possibilities and things like that. It's so productive, and not stay in that stuck spot.
Yeah. And I think we lose perspective, especially for men that have been in pain for a long time. They lose perspective on the fact that the body is plastic, and that if we apply subtle changes to the body will adjust and adapt around that. So it's something that I really try and again encourage guys to try and believe that change is possible, and that we can change from the smallest of gestures. But if we do it repetitively and if we do it consistently, then we change the outcome moving forwards.
Yeah. That is good. So change is possible even in the holes that we get ourselves into. So we talked about this ideally healthy man, this person that has it's not necessarily on the outside what they look like, but they're balanced mentally and with their body. So if you like flip that coin over, and what do you think is some of the things when you look out in your sphere of influence? I know you're in the medical profession, so you get a really good look at some pretty unhealthy situations. But what do you think is like some of the most unhealthy things that guys do to create unhealth?
I think there is a propensity towards men to follow the path of least resistance. We will do things when we have to do them. But, sometimes we kind of just want to find an easier route for ourselves. And sometimes the better way to go is not all the easiest way to go. And so there is a little bit of self-motivation that comes into it. And that's, again, where when you're having a tough time in life and things aren't going your way, sometimes I see my role as a clinician to kind of being that guide to the patient, to help them to see things that aren't right in front of them at that moment in time, and try and get them back on the right track,
Yeah. Wow, I can see this. I'm writing as you're talking. I'm writing these things down, and I'm seeing a theme with you. You just mentioned that we have a tendency to follow the path of least resistance, and then you said having a balanced mind and body, and it's like our choices in life really impact where we're going to be in the future. And it's so critical for us to really examine those and make sure that we're not just choosing the easy way, but we're choosing the most productive way. So,
Yeah.
man, that's a really good thought there.
And we can apply that principle into things like exercise, into things like training. Like, you know, is there a balance between the strength work that you do and the flexibility work that you do and the cardiovascular work that you do? Is there a balance in there? You know, is there a balance in the fuel that we put in the system? You know, the food that we eat, stuff that we drink. And I think that, you know, when we're looking at life in general, there is this real, we need to find balance. We need to find the balance between, you know, trying to find genuine joy. And I think that that's something that, again, men tend to put off as being frivolous. And it's not. Yeah. It's important that we find something that, like you said to me at the very beginning, what gets you out of bed in the morning? I mean, I was joking with pain, you know. What gets me out of bed in the morning is I love what I do for work. I love going into work. I love helping people. I love talking to people.
Yeah.
You know, I love interacting. I love being able to be a contributor towards life and society in general. You know, I look forward to the interactions that I have with my kids and my kids' friends and my kids' parents' friends, you know, and friends' parents. And it's like it's like that tree of life, you know, that each branch goes off and then into other branches. And, you know, the wonderful thing is that we can look at ourselves as going down a dead-ended alley, right? Or we can look at it as going towards the end of branches, you know, and if a branch doesn't work for us, we can just whip back a little way and go down a different branch, you know. So there's no such thing as a dead end, you know. It's just that's the end of that pathway, and let's go backtrack a bit and let's find a different pathway.
Dude, you should write a book called "There's No Such Thing as a Dead End." That is real. That could be like life changing for so many of us. That's so powerful. Well, that's really good, sir. I really appreciate that. So let's get a little more personal with you. What you know, when you look back over your past and your life, what do you think is some of the things that you have done really well at as far as keeping yourself healthy, and what are some of the misses that you had where where you made some choices or you went a direction that you shouldn't have, or whatever? What are some good things you've done that have created good health, and what are some things that have not been that productive for you in regards to being a healthy guy?
I think one of the things that I kind of think I'm most proud of really is that my dad died when I was about 11 years old. So he was 42. He had a big heart attack and he just died early. And so I didn't really get to know my dad very well. And when I was approaching my eldest son turning 11, I started to realize that, in fact, I was really snapping at him. I was really trying to force him to almost become a man. My wife noticed it, and I kind of felt like there was this underlying nervousness about life. And so I ended up going to see a psychologist, and it was something I didn't have to do, but I wanted to do it. And by seeing the psychologist, and she made me realize that what I was doing was actually experiencing a fair amount of anxiety and fear at the fact that I was approaching the age my father was when he died. And my son was at the age where I was when he died. And I was starting to kind of almost predict my future demise, so to speak.
Wow.
And in fact, it actually made me realize that I hadn't dealt with a lot of the emotions and the way in which I dealt with my father's death kind of thing as a child particularly well. And so I then started to have some therapy with her, and in fact that really helped me to identify that there was, you know, some depressive elements in my life at that time, and I had to go on some medication for a while, and you know, and I think that really, even though I wasn't at that critical, like, depressive kind of point, you know, I was really glad that I was able to pick that I needed help at that time, and I got it, and was able to kind of move forwards from there, you know.
Wow. How many years ago was that?
Well, I'm 40. It was about 5-6 years ago now.
Wow. So, man, you know, I think that when I look around at me and some of my guy friends, I think that's probably not with everybody, but in general, I think guys really struggle with that whole thing of reaching out and getting help. And it could be like a psychologist like you went and talked to, or it could be like another guy friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I think men tend to feel very much like they're islands, like they're. I mean, we've been surrounded by media and literature for years dictating that male behaviors are strong and stoic and masculine.
Yeah.
And I think, part of it breeds right the way back to caveman times where the strongest survived and the weakest failed. And we look at both physical and mental health as a sign of weakness. And men classically don't like to admit that there's a weakness in the system. But I think that, again, if we change that word weakness to balance and we start to look like we're falling out of balance, it's not an indication that there's anything wrong with us if we're out of balance. We just need to right the wrongs and get ourselves back into that balanced position again. And whatever means we need to achieve that is how we need to go moving forward.
Yeah. Wow. So that's I think we could do a whole podcast just on backing up here a little bit about that whole situation with your dad dying, and then the reflection that you had, or maybe it was a subconscious thing going on with you and your son. But there's a whole lot of pain there, isn't there?
Oh yeah, and it was pain that, as a 11, 12-year-old child, when your dad dies, you just don't know how to process. And so what you do is you belt it down and you lock it away and you kind of get through it. And then, when you come into these times as an adult and you realize that there's stuff that's gone on in the past that's holding you back, you've really got a responsibility to get forwards and find the balance again at that point in your life.
Wow. That's powerful. That's really good. You talked about your proudest moment. What are some times where you kind of veered off? Tell us a good story about one of your big fails.
I don't know. I think that, there have been times, about 4 years ago, I finished my research master's, and I think at times through there, I was more focused on, my career and my education than I was possibly on what was going on around me. And I think that there are times where the kids wanted to do stuff and wanted to play and wanted to interact, and I was busy. And I think that they're probably my least proud moments. But again, thankfully, that was just a period of time in my life. And, and I think everyone goes through periods where you are a little bit out of balance, a bit busy, and it's got to be that way for a while. But the danger is getting yourself into that spiral where that seems to be the only way to go.
Yeah.
Keep following it down.
Yeah. I always think I think for me, it's always good to sit down mentally and emotionally and think into the future and think, is this what I'm doing right now? Is this really going to be that big of a deal when I look back over my whole life? And I think life really boils down to, the impact that you're having on your family and your friends around you. That's like so much more important than some of the things we get bogged down in. So that's I think that's so important for each one of us to process that and put that in perspective.
Yep.
So
definitely.
Hey, so Stuart, here's a second to the last thing I want to talk to you about. So I'm putting a crown on your head. You just became king of the world. and you have like maybe one, maybe two things that you think that you have a magic wand and you can make anything happen. What would it be that you would do that you think would have the biggest impact on the majority of most men in the world? What would you change?
I would like men to express joy better. I would like men to break out and dance with abandon. I think that it would do the world an incredible amount of good if guys could just let it go. Just, you know what I mean? Just absolutely push a button and, like I said, dance with abandon. Literally not care in the world and just let it out. Because I think that, I've being a physical therapist, like I've studied human movement, and the body is this amazing piece of kit, and it moves in the most incredible ways. I love watching dance. In fact, my little girl is very into dance, and whereas the boys are all like, "Oh God, here we go again." I love watching it. I could sit and watch it dance for hours and hours on end. I'm absolutely happy with that. So I think that would probably be the one thing, or just in some way to give men the acknowledgement or the capacity to be able to look for a moment of real internal joy, where they get that real rush of a thrill that I've enjoyed that. Whether it's I've made that, or I've created that, or I've finished this, or I've done that. Something that gives men joy.
Yeah,
that's what I would like to do.
That is such a great answer. So tell me a little bit more from your perspective, in all your experiences. What you mentioned joy several times, finding that place of expressing joy, being in a joyful place. What is that? What is that? And what does that do for a guy?
I think that, the most obvious thing is a physiological thing. You have a pleasure center in your brain that releases hormones that are more, potent than opioids, And if we can find, that pleasure in everyday life, in the simple things in life, and sometimes it's about, coming back to the basics of the fact that we live, that we breathe, that we interact. These are miracles. These are absolutely bona fide miracles. The fact that there is a sun in the sky, and there is an ocean, and there is sand, and there are trees. Like, how cool is that? And I think sometimes we surround ourselves with the iPhones or the computers or the latest technology, and does it, yes, it's clever and it's fancy, but sometimes I think the simple stuff, appreciating the simple stuff, the simple physical human contact, the ability to touch something, they're just mental things when you actually just strip it all back down and actually look at the actual intrinsics of what that actually means.
Wow. That is such a great. I want to get to know you more, Stuart. That is so awesome. Maybe I'll go to Australia. And we go out dancing together or something.
We'll go out dancing. We'll go out for a surf. It's a nice day. Swell's looking good. All good.
That's great. Hey, so I'm gonna wrap it up this way. I would like, you can give out whatever information you want in regards to if you want people to contact you or how or whatever. Or if not, you don't have to put anything in. If you do put that information out.
The funny thing is that, one of the joys of COVID, which I never thought I'd actually say the word joy and COVID together.
Yeah.
But it's actually meant that I've started to do more and more of my work via telehealth, which I never thought I'd do before. In fact, only this week, I've had my first contact with a guy from Dallas, who's a post-prostatectomy patient who's really struggling with incontinence and erectile dysfunction. And we had the most amazing, hour and a half session, just sitting down, chatting, exactly like this. Being able to guide people from a distance, it's made me realize that, in fact, the work that I do can be done. I mean, there's a part of it that I think there's always a physical element that's important.
Yeah.
And the research that I'm doing at the moment is predominantly working on looking at real-time ultrasound and actually starting to look at the muscles in real time so that we can train men how to accurately identify the muscles specific to erection, specific to continence, So that's something that we can't do via telehealth, but, a lot of other stuff we can. And certainly with pelvic pain, again, trying to help men find balance. Sometimes, it's not all about what we do as physical therapists. It's also how we guide people in like their life skills, and the way they approach life in general. So I'm more than happy for people to email or to reach out. And even if I can't help them, I normally try and have a look around and see if there's someone in the area that I'm aware of.
Cool. So why don't you do this? Why don't you wrap it up this way? Why don't you just say where people can get a hold of you, and then any last thoughts on men's health. And especially, I know we didn't spend hardly any time on what you're doing with your your practice in regards to erectile dysfunction and I forget. I remember I looked at it. There's another emphasis that you had. Abdominal.
Incontinence and erectile dysfunction are the two big ones, and then pelvic pain. They're the three things that we tend to kind of focus on.
Yeah, and I did look at some of your YouTube videos about those exercises, and I'm do some of that stuff too, and it's very, your core muscles and your core is so critical to good health. So, but why don't you just say, this is how you get a hold of me if you want people to get a hold of you, and then wrap it up with any final thoughts on what your thoughts are on men's health and how we can all be healthier.
Yeah, I think well, if anyone wants to contact me, you can always just email me, and that's StuartBaptist, so Stuart Baptist, which is my name, at ssop.com.au. And yeah, anyone who's got any questions, any worries, if you've got friends who have prostate cancer, or you've had prostate cancer, or you need to kind of get some guidance on either incontinence, erectile dysfunction, if you're a guy that suffered with pelvic pain or dysfunctional urology for a long period of time, and you're just feeling at the end of your tether, again, it's sometimes nice just to reach out and to kind of bounce ideas off someone from a distance. And so I'm more than happy to kind of try and help any guy that's kind of feeling like they're just at the end of that pathway, like it is not a dead end. If we might have to backtrack a little bit, we might have to find a different pathway for you, but that's part of the joy of the tree, is that there's always a different branch to go down, and we've just got to kind of backtrack far enough and find a new route going forward.
You've been listening to the 4 Pillars of Men's Health with Dave Skattum. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit the4pillarsofmenshealth.com.